Welcome to Chief Miller. Chief Miller operates the largest social media page dedicated to the men and women of the fire service from around the world. Check him out on Instagram at Chief_Miller. Find him on Twitter at Chief_Miller. And check out the website where you can find Chief Miller Apparel at chiefmillerapparel.com. You're listening to Views from the Jumpseat podcast. Bunker up. Buckle in. It's time for the show to begin. One thing remains constant in the fire service is that we start day one in the jump seat. So if you're a chief officer, welcome back. If you're the day one probationary, welcome aboard. It's time for Jumpseat Radio. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Jumpseat Radio, the podcast that has never had a return guest as fast as this young man that we're getting ready to bring him on the microphone again. We'd like to welcome back Chief Lasky. Chief, thanks for coming back on at such short notice.
Thanks, buddy. You know, when we were talking last time, our last visit, that's one of the things I know I kept thinking about was, God, I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time because it was just a great conversation, and it got some great feedback from a bunch of your followers. I know you got a ton of people follow you, and it was pretty cool. So I'm excited to be back, buddy.
All right, Chief, we left off, and like I said, I apologize about having to cut you short, cut the podcast short last time because I did have a couple other things going on. But we left off the Blast podcast with what the heck is that amazing paddle? And for you folks listening on the podcast, he's got I guess that's an oar. It's a paddle, not an oar, right? And tell me the story about that.
Well, I've had the privilege and honor to not only teach in the fire service and law enforcement and on the EMS side, but also on we do a lot of classes on the corporate side.
Right.
The other part of that is we do a lot for the armed forces, and for all the different branches. We've been, we've done all the bunch of different Navy bases. It's just incredible. I did 2 programs at 29 Palms, which is a Marine Corps base in California. And the second one I did there, I did a leadership. It did actually part of 5-alarm leadership for the Marines. Had several hundred Marines and a bunch of sailors. And my son was actually stationed there. He was a FMF corpsman. You know, when you say combat corpsman, you get corrected real quick by the Navy corpsman or combat medic, because combat medic is the title more associated with the Army. You have to say like FMF corpsman, which is Fleet Marine Force. So I don't get anybody writing any letters to us. My son was a Navy corpsman, and as everybody knows, the Marines, actually part of the, overall the Navy, the part of the Navy, their corpsmen, their combat medics are from the Navy. And right. That's what my son did. He was assigned to the Marines and deployed with them and everything else. So I went there, and not only did they surprised me, I get to pin my son. They promoted my son on stage and let me pin him right before I'm supposed to teach. So I'm like a big time bomb of tears. The Master Chief of the Navy was there, and it was pretty cool, and all the Marines. And they presented me with that gift. That's a big thing in the United States Navy.
Wow.
That has several of the FMF, the Fleet Marine Force corpsmen. It's got the division for the Marines. It's got their challenge coins. It's actually a pretty cool thing. And I don't. You're the first one that's really asked. I hung it there because I'm proud, and my son's proud of it. But it's one of those where sometimes you look at people's rooms and they've got, it's like the look at me wall, and me, I just have my stuff that that is just, that's so very special to me. It's an incredible honor, and it's a big deal they do in the Navy when they present either retirements or people being promoted. There's that cord is wrapped around there.
Right.
There's a whole process behind it, but it's pretty cool. I'm honored, and I always will be, and I appreciate you asking about it. But it was a pretty cool moment. I had no idea, and they presented that, and my son's like, "Dad, that is huge. You have no idea who they give those to." And I don't do very good at that kind of stuff. I love doing the awards ceremonies. We're writing the book on it. I love giving stuff out, but I hate receiving things. I'm just kind of like, they've had the sneak awards before to give it to me and have someone else play Officer of the Year. And then when I get ready to present it, they said it's to me because I would have never allowed them to do it. But anyway, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So thanks for asking, buddy.
Your humility is refreshing. It always has been. I mean, it's like when we talk, you always direct everything away from the great stuff that you've done in Louisville, the great stuff you did in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which I didn't know about until last podcast. Idaho is on my list of places I've not visited yet, but I'm a huge Navy buff. And if I had to do all over again, that was the biggest regret of my life, was not going into the service. And I would have been a Navy person. I would have been a seaman. I love the ocean, and that's why it really caught my eye back there. But I want to transition to something that we started before we hit the record button. And it's something that you blew me away again, Chief. There's twice. That's 2 podcasts. You've just like, and it's like you mentioned two little letters, IT. What is it? And you've got to explain that to me, because I mean, before the camera and the record button hit, you blew me away already. I mean, we're already like 3 minutes in, and you're already got me tore up.
Well, and Ryan, what it is I've tried to, like, over the past 15 years, I hit my 40th year in the fire service, 28 years traveling and teaching, and I'm honored. It's always me and my best buddy, John Salter, we'll sit in the hotel sometime, just go, and I know you know the feeling because you're all over the place too. All of us, you're in that, I call that inner circle of good instructor friends, you know,
right.
The Ryan Penningtons and all that. And you sit there, you go, God, this is like the coolest thing in the world to be able to go out and visit with people. And I'm so honored in that. Well, you know, there's several messages like you have, I have, you know, John has, Bobby Halton, that you try to push out there. And one of the things I started doing in Pride and Ownership from the beginning was talking about our history and why we exist and why we're here. And what I've realized over the years is a lot of our fire academies are missing something very, very important. In fact, the most important thing you can do at a fire academy, the most important topic, the 3 most important topics you can teach a new firefighter are history, fire behavior, building construction. We do a horrible job teaching fire behavior, building construction, yet they're in the top 3 the most important. But the very first day, the very first thing you should be teaching a brand new firefighter is why we're here, why we exist, what it is. And Glenn Corbett, you know Professor Glenn Corbett, Professor Glenny, we're big history buffs. We both have our museums. We got our collections. I'll never come close to what Glenny's got. It's incredible. But anytime Glenn and I are on the phone, he'll text me out of blue and say, what do you think? He'll show me like an artifact or a piece. We're big buffs. We're the history. So, well, oh golly, for like 2002 for FDIC, we came up with a program called Tradition at FDIC, what you should be explaining and telling your new firefighters day one in the fire academy. And it grew into a program I do called Our History. This should be day one in the fire academy. And it's the it thing comes right. And I say this, and there's no really short way to explain this. Everybody, all your listeners, all right, all your listeners and your viewers, everybody's heard that phrase, so-and-so gets it. I used to say about my daughter's softball team while coaching that our girls get it. They get the 3 A's that you're supposed to have in as a student athlete. You know, that's attitude, academics, and then athleticism. Or I say our girls' parents get it. Or how about this? You'll say like in Charleston, our mayor gets it. You know, we've all heard somebody use that phrase, they get it. Then I asked people in class, how many people in class have had somebody in the fire service sit them down and explain to them what it is, it in the fire service? And nobody raises their hands. I said, see, I thought I got it. I grew up in a firehouse with my old man. I was ate up with it. I always have been. I love it. It took one of my mentors, Chief Jackman Caslin, it was like 1984, to sit me down and tell me what it was. And it changed my career. And I tell people, when I have a young firefighter, a young officer complaining, you know, we're having coffee at a firehouse or whatever, a visit, and they're complaining about fire inspections, pre-plans. I used to say training. I don't know how you can't love to train the fire service, but there are people. And like we said before, for the company officers that are watching this or listening to this, why would you not want to train your guys for a job that could kill them? I don't get that. But anyway, inspections, pre-plans, and truck checks. And when they bitch about that stuff, I just kind of smile and drink my coffee because in my heart of hearts, I know they don't get it. Because officers and firefighters that get it in the fire service understand what it is, why we exist. They don't complain about that stuff. And I used to be that way. I didn't want to go do a pre-plan ride. Like, you know, I'd go out and stretch hose and go. And then I got it. And when I talk about it is, like right now, and I know this will date this podcast a little bit for years to come, but we're in October.
Right.
And there's a lot of firefighters that don't know why October is Fire Prevention Month, why the week of October 8th is always Fire Prevention Week. And, a couple of people raised their hands and said, well, that's because of the Great Chicago Fire. And I'm like, great. October 8th, 1871, the Great Chicago Fire. That's great, but let's clear up some fairy tales about that, because a lot of people aren't teaching the history right. Number one, Mrs. O'Leary's cow didn't kick over a lantern and start the fire. That's a lie. That was actually fake news. That was fake news.
You heard it here first on Jumpseat Radio. Fake news.
Fake news in 1871. A Chicago Tribune reporter started that story up halfway through the fire. That's not how the fire started. In 1996, I have it in writing, the Chicago City Council exonerated Kate O'Leary, no O'Leary cow. The cow's innocent. That's not how it started. Well, you kind of back up and go, well, if they don't know why October is Fire Prevention Month, when every month should be Fire Prevention Month, they don't know where the Maltese Cross came from. Mm-hmm. A lot of fire departments don't know. I ask them, so how do we get that in North America? They're wearing it, and I tell people it was brought into the fire service by the largest combination volunteer and career fire department in the world. And they'll jump right up and say Prince George. I said, no, New York City. New York City brought it in. And when the NYFD, roughly 1855, went to all career FDNY, due to a state law, they had to change their name to the Metropolitan Fire Department. The FDNY was the MFD, the Metropolitan Fire Department. They switched from a shield to the more pointed Maltese Cross. I have pictures of these that I use in my presentation. And then 5 years later, went back to FDNY, they used the Maltese Cross you see now. So, it may not seem like a big deal, but Ryan, this is where we connect the dots for our young firefighters and explain to them why they're even here, why we exist, why the fire service exists. It's not because some TV show or some movie or what they read in some training book, why we exist. So, the other tragic thing, Ryan, about October 8th is there was another fire that same day, that same exact moment in time, not 10 days later, that same time in Peshtigo, Wisconsin, and it killed over 2,000 people. If you Google the Forgotten Fire, that's what comes up. People don't talk. I mean, I'm like, Chicago killed like 300 people, and the Great Chicago Fire, I should say, and like 17,500 buildings. But Peshtigo, Wisconsin, killed over 2,000 people, 196 miles away from Chicago, and we never up near Green Bay, and we don't ever talk about it. So I get into that, and I said, so if you don't know that, do you realize that everything we do in the fire service is tragedy driven? Everything we do is trash. So I asked the question, why do we do fire drills in schools? A lot of young firefighters bitch and complain about having to go do a fire drill in a school. I said, if they do that, I said, why? Well, Our Lady, there's lots of catalysts for different things, but there's usually one, the tipping point that changes something. Like One Meridian Plaza in Philly changed the fact that we don't use 100 PSI automatic nozzles with PRVs that are set to the standard before the change in 1993. 91 was the fire. People still have automatic 100 PSI nozzles on their high-rise packs, and PRVs still set to 65. And I don't get it. I just don't get how you can even have that nozzle on there, not knowing that you're not going to get to anywhere to your pressure. Well, you kind of roll things back, where the Maltese Cross came from. Why do we have red lights at firehouses? A lot of firehouses have a red light on. And I ask officers why, and they'll go, because we're the fire department. No, that's not the reason. It's all telegraph driven. And I won't even get into that. That's another really cool story. I don't know if you can see it. There's one.
I see it right over your right shoulder for you people listening to the podcast. The Chief's got one right there.
Right there. So, and the stuff behind me is all there for teaching reasons. But anyway, that being said, there's always that one disaster that changed everything. Well, the Our Lady Angels Catholic School Fire, December 1st, 1958, resulted in 95 fatalities, 3 nuns, 92 children. And that was the catalyst for doing the fire drills at school. So the next time one of your young firefighters out there, folks, complains about having to do a fire drill at school, bring her back, sit them down, and show them the memorial page of the 92 dead kids and say that's the only reason we're doing that. Then I ask them, so why do we have codes in theaters? And those, the Iroquois Theater in Chicago, the Brooklyn Theater in New York, the Rhodes Opera House in Boyertown, Pennsylvania, Eastern Pennsylvania. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dead people, usually because of blocked, impeded, or inaccessible means of egress. Why do we have codes in places of public assembly like social clubs? Coconut Grove in Boston, Beverly Hills Supper Club in Kentucky, Happy Land in the Bronx, hundreds and hundreds of dead people. Now, all of a sudden, when you're doing a pre-planner inspection, blocked exits become pretty important to that young firefighter. Now he or she truly starts to understand why we exist. Then I asked the question, I said, so why do we have codes regarding barred and chain doors in sweatshops and businesses? And Ryan, everybody yells off the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire.
Yep.
Well, those little girls jumped to their deaths arm in arm, hand in hand, because they were trapped. Then I'll say, so why, when the carnival sets up in the downtown area, your mall or in your park, why is somebody from fire prevention supposed to go and inspect the big top, the tent? Well, the catalyst for that was the Hartford, Connecticut Circus, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus fire. It resulted in like almost 200 deaths and about 1,000 people injured, if not burned, way back when. With that, they used to treat the big top with paraffin wax and gasoline to waterproof.
Wow.
So I said, there's always been, the reason we have codes in hospitals because of the Cleveland Clinic fire, the reason we have codes in prisons is because of the Ohio State Penitentiary fire with 320 fatalities. Hotels, lots of hotel disasters as well. Like Our Lady of the Angels wasn't the only school disaster, but that was the catalyst for the fire drills. You talk about hotels, Wyckoff Hotel fire, downtown Atlanta. There's a plaque right on the corner from it. Changed a lot of the codes for hotels. The King James nursing home fire. Oh, a horrible, horrific fire in Missouri. That week, days afterwards, the governor changed state laws regarding nursing home codes. That went national. So everything we do, the largest loss of life in New York City prior to 9/11 due to fire was again, prior to 9/11, was on a boat. It was on a paddle boat called the General Slocum on the East River that caught fire, resulting in 1,018 fatalities, mostly little kids. So that changed all the river and paddle boats that you see, like in your area too, when you kind of get inland with the rivers. The Titanic brought us lifeboat drills. So all these different catalysts. And then Ryan, the last part I asked these young firefighters in classes, so what do they put in natural and propane gas as the odorant? Because in its natural state, it's odorless. And they all say, they all rattle off mercaptan.
Right.
Well, everybody knows mercaptan. I say, why? Well, because it will smell. No, it's disaster driven. What disaster? And I said, sometimes a lot of guys in Texas don't know. And they talk about Texas City, which is another good one to study, with the two ships in Galveston Bay with the ammonium nitrate that killed, remember the fire department when the first ship exploded. That's by those of us at hazmat, treat organic peroxides and oxidizers the same to explosives because they are. Same stuff that blew up in West Texas, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Kansas City 6 firefighters, the February 26, 1993 bombing at North World Trade Center Tower. So all these things wrap into that. Well, you go back, the reason they even put mercaptan in natural propane gas is March 18th, 1937, New London, Texas, East Texas, brand new middle school. It was called green gas back then because they had no odor. They had a leak beneath a concrete slab, kind of like in a cellar. And a worker started a tulip about 10:30-ish in the morning and blew the school. Google the pictures, folks. Blew it to smithereen, killed 325 little kids and their teachers.
Wow.
Wiped out generations right in that little town, okay? Wiped out generations. And 2 weeks later, the Texas legislature passed a law saying you had to put mercaptan in natural propane gas as the odorant. So that's the reason. So the next time, guys, one of your young firefighters are complaining about going on a BS gas leak, bring him or her back, sit them out front of the computer, show them a memorial page with all the dead kids and say, the only reason we just went on that is because of all these dead kids and teachers. And there's, the history, right? Why we exist. There's guys that don't even know what the stuff is in the middle of their badge at the scramble. They can, right. They always know everything but the parade torch and why that's in there. I just, and I know I told you to begin with, I apologize. It takes a while to kind of explain.
No.
Well, and there's so much more. I mean, it's like everything we do is because something, and yet we don't explain this to our young firefighters. And Ryan, you hear all these old guys bitch that the kids don't get it.
They don't.
They don't want to explain to what it is. Right. And then they'll get it. But it's not magical. It's not going to happen accidentally. So that's my whole thing that I have a whole presentation about it, but let's explain to what it is and why we even exist. And then if they don't get it after that, then we have other problems.
Do you think it's because we don't have these, and I'm going to knock on some wood right here. I mean, outside the World Trade Center, outside the Station nightclub fire, outside of maybe the conflagration that happened during Superstorm I can't say that, in Queens when they burnt down like 3 or 4 blocks. Do you think it's because we don't have that magnitude of events nowadays that we don't quite get it?
I don't know if it's that, because Here's another. You bring up a really good question, which leads to a great point. I knew that's where you're going with this. Is you do it in class, I do it. You ask these students in class, what happened in Hackensack, New Jersey?
Right.
We're not talking 100 years ago. What happened in Hackensack, New Jersey? The tragedy that happened there, and there's so many lessons. Hackensack's got a great fire department. They're a great fire department, but again, goes to show you that doesn't matter how big or how small you are. There's no do-overs in the fire service. There's no do-overs. You're just as dead. And so we have to go back. They don't know what happened in Hackensack. Tomorrow we're doing a show with Jay Jonas, Deputy Chief Jay Jonas, and Battalion Chief John Salkin of the FDOI about the anniversary. It's the anniversary of the 23rd Street fire and collapse with 12 line of duty deaths that occurred a long time ago, and then the lessons learned from that. We don't do a good enough job with any of it, Ryan, let alone some of the other stuff has escaped us because, hell, we don't even talk about what happened a year ago, let alone what happened 50 years ago or 100 years ago. So you bring up a great question, but more importantly, a great point that we don't share. We don't explain. We're so busy jumping down to helicopters or carabiners that we can't stretch hose anymore. And we're not, we can't get a line in on a fire. There's so many things we should be doing to some people that may not be as exciting, but are absolutely critical. So you're right. If we're not going to visit on those things, there's lots of tragic fires that occur every day that may not carry that magnitude, but are just as important because of the lessons that are learned from them that we don't seem to want to share.
Well, it's so funny that we're having this conversation. This is complete. I never write scripts for podcasts because I never get to any of it anyway. But since you've been to my area and my guys have gone through your pride and ownership and you speak about learning our history, one of the first things that we do with our recruit class now is they learn who the chiefs were. They learn who the line of duty deaths here in Charleston were. We had a line of duty death in the 40s where we lost 7 firefighters. In the Woolworth building, it was a terrazzo floor. But come to find out, in the early 80s, we lost a truck company lieutenant who stepped on a skylight that was painted. So he went up to do a roof inspection. He fell through the skylight and was killed. And it was like, oh, wow. That is a lesson we need to learn. Fast forward to Ryan 3 years ago. We come in on a silo fire. Why the heck there's a silo in the middle of Charleston, West Virginia, I have no idea. The silo's burning 100 feet in the air. And my captain goes, come on, Ryan, we're going the roof. I'm like, ooh, Cap, I'm not feeling this one right now. Because it was a metal frame building. He said, first thing we're going to do is we're going to watch out for skylights. And I was like, well, there you go. That was the lesson that we learned. And I swear it saved our life that day because there were skylights all over that building. So, Chief, I really think that is such something that needs to be spoken to our younger generation because Jumpseat Radio is about those new firefighters. Who has to be that person delivering it in your organization? Is it your company officer? Is it your chief officer? Because let's face it, the kids nowadays, they're a little bit more techie. Is it something we need to start sharing by technology, or how do we initiate that?
I think this comes back to, I think everybody carries some of the response. Everybody carries part of this attack line.
There you go. I like that.
The chiefs have to be dialed in. The chiefs have to be, you can't, and unfortunately, I haven't been a fire chief a long time and deal with a lot of them. There's almost 40,000 fire departments, almost, per ISO in the United States. And then we got a whole bunch in Canada. And the only difference for our Canadian listeners between us and our Canadian fire family is a blurry line on a map. We're all the same family.
Absolutely.
But that being said, there's a lot of chiefs that kind of get, and again, there's a ton of great ones, more great ones. There's I shouldn't even say a lot. They kind of get disconnected after a while. It's them versus us, and they get so caught up in things at City Hall that if they're not practiced, they're not sitting down having a cup of coffee and talk about things or listening or joining in, then we've got a problem. If the company officer, the chief officers in general, if the company officers aren't, if you're a company officer and you don't know your department's history, oh my God! So you just said something when you're talking about that. We were in another state and we're having dinner, and we went to have afterwards to the firehouse have coffee. I'm looking at the pictures on the walls, and there's a house. It was a house fire to snow, and it was a line of duty death. And I said, "What happened here?" And that all 5 firefighters went. Well, I said, "Was it?" They said it was in the basement. I said, "Did he run it?" Very good. They couldn't tell me. And
wow.
I'm like, you had a line of duty at your own department and you didn't know. So how you expect this stuff not to happen in the future if you don't go back and look at what Vinny Dunn in his Firefighter Safety and Survival book said? The only way for us to truly understand the dangers of firefighting is either go back and look at how firefighters have been injured and killed. And we don't do a good enough job with that. So if you're a company officer and you don't know the history of the fire service, let alone your own department, I'll just say it, shame on you. But here's the key, I think, Ryan. How about the senior firefighter?
Oh,
How about, and in some places, Ryan, the senior firefighter may only have 5 years. I mean, you don't have to have 20 years to be a senior firefighter. How about that guy or gal that grabs Rick and Ryan? Rick and Ryan get hired. We walk in the firehouse with our first day. And they come down, they sit down, they have that talk with us, and they explain to us why we exist and a little bit about what it is. And not the bullying. The bullies and thugs need to be run out of the fire service. I'm talking about like what they do in the FDNY, where they grab you, they say, come here, kid, sit down. And they all have their different areas. I think the key is that senior firefighter. I think, the chiefs can only do so much. Sometimes you're not going to see them as often as you will. Your company officers have to know this stuff, but golly, the guy or gal that you're out there checking the rigs with, doing your daily duties with, riding backwards, someone that's going to be able to lean over, tap you, say, okay, let me explain something. We're on the way to this call. Senior firefighters on so many different levels are important. And again, to your viewers and listeners, you don't have to have 20 years. If you're the more senior firefighter in your department, volunteer career, step up and be that guy or gal that, this isn't about arrogance or ego. This is about being a know-it-all. This is about sharing those experiences and talking about that stuff. Be a student of the fire service. Research. Go to the firefighter near miss websites. Read the line of duty that. Start checking off all the things that happen and comparing to how you fight fires in your own department. Just like you said, the terrazzo floor. That's what happened at 23rd Street. 23rd Street's floor, though, was really, really thick. Well, terrazzo, if you look how they pour it, they put that underlay. It's a concrete sand mix below it, and then there's a pan. So what we end up feeling in a residential, like single family dwelling fire for heat, you don't feel that it's masked. You don't feel it like you would, and so it's misleading. You can have this fire like what happened at 23rd Street, attacking and eating away at the floor joists with this concrete load on top of it. Exactly, and then when it goes, and boom, and that's it. And it drops you into an inferno. So, Ryan, I think the senior firefighter, they can, as a company officer, any successful company officer has to admit to you that the reason they're successful is because they've got a senior firefighter taking. I mean, they take care of all the BS for you. They handle situations. They set the tempo for things, and and then you come to the two of them together do incredible things. So I think we need to see your firefighters to step up and start pushing this information out, buddy.
I'm obsessed with Jocko Willink. I'm absolutely obsessed with his mentality. That's probably why it led me to your paddle. In his latest book, The Dichotomy of Leadership, it keeps coming back to what you're saying. It's like you want to be close with someone, but you don't want to be too close. You want to be strict with someone, but you don't want to be too strict. It's a dichotomy. It's a give and take. But in all of his leadership lessons, it comes right back to exactly what you're saying, is that senior firefighter needs to be the barometer for the firehouse. It needs to be the instigator of the training. But what you're talking about is they need to be it for that crew. I mean, they need to be that it. I mean, if we would not share the Woolworth story fire with I mean, we still have terrazzo floors downtown in that area that we could absolutely go to one right now. If we don't share the story where we lost 9 civilians, 7 of them children, with the fire station less than 2 blocks away from the fire, we would be destined to repeat it. I mean, that captain that day, and Captain Dunbar, if you're listening, but I almost get choked up talking about it. The police officers described what the firefighters did that night as nothing short of Superman heroic. He walked through the flames to start chucking kids out windows. But it's our responsibility, Chief, to learn this stuff. It's our responsibility to share this stuff. Listen, if you want to talk about fire dynamics, I'm all about it. But let's talk about why use cross-laid pre-connected hoses. Let's talk about why we have these building codes. And Chief, I think it's up to us to push that along.
Oh, it is. And And again, one of the messages that I know I like to send is, and I know you've got you got listeners and viewers of all walks of life.
Yep.
Small 10 roster volunteer departments, 1,000 member career departments. And when I said before, there's no do-overs and fire doesn't care, you have it happen to you when you teach. Same thing I do. When they come up, you say, so where are you from?
Right.
Oh, I'm from the XYZ. I'm from a little, like, one station career, one station volunteer department, a small one. I'm like, when you say small, you mean your firefighters can't get that like anybody else's guys? And they go, well, no, we're not the FDNY or Chicago or LA or Houston. I go, well, neither are they.
Right.
If you pull the large metro departments out of the numbers every year, it's us. And Bill Carey from Firefighter Nation for Fire Safety is doing incredible work with the statistics, because liars figure, figures lie. And there's a lot of people out there that like to paint a different picture of how
Right.
we're losing the fire service. But that being said, so I said, I don't care how busy or slow your fire department is. If you drop your guard one time,
right,
you just as dead. I think I told you last time I did that article, the most dangerous words of the fire service, and not because we've always done it this way. It's we never thought it would happen
to
here.
us.
So I think we chatted about this last time. When you ask these guys in the audience, you say, so who's been to Emmitsburg? And they all bunch raise their hands. So when you went there, they have a memorial, like with names on it, for the career guys here. And they have one over here for the volunteers. And then they have one for small departments and big departments, right? They all go,
nope.
No. What do you mean no? You mean it's all on one? You mean all the names get chiseled on one memorial? Yes, they do. You're just as dead. You're just as gone. We need to get better at sharing the information, right? Second, with the future generations, create more go-to guys, more go-to men and women, more go-to guys and gals that are going to be, they're the future. And we're not doing it. We're not explaining to them what happened.
Yeah. I'm almost feeling guilty sitting behind this microphone, because a lot of what you've brought up doesn't really ring a bell with me right now. And it's like, I had this conversation with, and we've got this one captain. I mean, he is just an absolute monster. I mean, he's physically fit, freaking salty. If you touched him, your sodium's going to go up. He's the go-to voice of our fire department. And before I think he kind of realized that, he's like, man, we miss those captains of the old days who really did this, this, and this. And I kind of looked around. I'm like, hey, you're the captain now, and you're that person. And he was like, oh, crap, Ryan, I am. So it's like seeing his evolving of that has been awesome.
Well, and you're right. A lot of guys don't even realize. You just reminded me that there's a good friend of mine, all right, was an FDNY firefighter in a squad, as a lieutenant. And then he retired. He's a training chief at a huge East Coast Fire Department. Great guy. He was there he was there on Black Sunday when the guys had to jump out the windows in the Bronx. And we lost some great people that day, some heroic people. Everybody knows the story with Jeff Cool and Joey D. Joey D was one of the instructors for John Salk and I. He was one of our instructors. So,
right.
They do the memorial. The foundation does it. His dad does it. The memorial training symposium every year. And when we talk about that day, and we talk about that particular incident and what happened, you said something. What happened was this firefighter friend of mine, this when he was still a firefighter, a lieutenant. He called me all distraught after that. We were just talking. I'm like, God, I can't imagine. He goes, Chief, I came around the back of the building when they were hitting.
Oh,
and
wow.
A lot of firefighters have heard that sound, unfortunately, of humans hitting the concrete when they jump out windows when they're trapped. But the sound of a firefighter, the sound of a firefighter with their air pack on, their tools, that slink, boom, boom. He says they were boom, boom, boom. Anyway, so we're talking about that. And what he was struggling, this is what he was struggling with. He goes, for all these years I've been in the FDNY, whenever we had a tragedy or bad call, first thing we do is all go back to the firehouse. We all go back to the firehouse, off duty, whatever. Mm-hmm. And you look at the senior firefighters there. He goes, I used to go to senior firefighters. I say, okay, what do we do? And he would say, okay, first thing we do is we're gonna secure his locker, make sure his car's okay in the parking lot. And let's get over to his house, make sure his house is good. We got people taking care. Let's get whoever we got to get food to them, to their family, to the hospital. We got to take care of this. We got to take care of that. We got to cover this. We got that. And he says, I got back to the firehouse and that senior guy wasn't there. And he says, and my young probies behind me came in and said, Steve, what do we do?
Because he's
and
the
I
senior
said, well,
man.
What did you say? He goes, Well, I said the first thing to do is secure his locker and make sure we take care of his car. We got to get to his house, make sure his house is okay, get some food for the people, for their family, and take care of them. But what? I go, do you see what just happened? He goes, no. I said, you became the senior guy.
That's right.
You know, the baton, the torch has been handed over, and now you're the one. And those young guys are looking up. You're that senior guy. He goes, but I've only got like 5 years on the FDNY, you know, 6 years I've been in the fire service longer. I go, it doesn't matter. Mm-mm. You're it now. Just like you said, that captain, you know, because nobody, especially the good ones, Ryan, are not sitting there going, you know, I think it's my turn to be the mentor now. Somebody going to come over here and drop the sword on my shoulder or something? I mean, I'm waiting for the ceremony.
Yeah, right.
And the good ones never truly realize that they serve in that role. And sometimes it takes an incident or something to jar it. And just like you said, that's what happened. That camp was like, wait a minute, you're it.
Yeah.
You know, where are these? Oh, you're it. You're here. You have a chance. You know, it's gonna be gone before you know it. Make a difference, right?
Oh my gosh. And I've never told him this personally, but watching his evolution as a young officer, a more experienced officer going to the busiest engine we have, running more fires than anybody in our state. And it's just like his demeanor has changed. His leadership has changed. His followership, which that's the key component of Jumpseat Nation and Jumpseat Radio, is they're his followers. I'm telling you what, he has built a team that is a force to be reckoned with. It really has been remarkable.
Well, and followers do not mean, you know this, but I'm making this point for obviously for our listeners. Those aren't kiss asses, and those aren't sheep. Good bosses, great leaders have followers, people that want, you've seen it. Yep. You can see, I talk about this all the time. When they come to our conferences, our classes, you can spot, John Salk and I, we sit there like this and we watch, and he goes, look at this guy. Look, you can tell that's the captain, that's the company officer. Yep. And both of us go, you know why? Because when they walk in, they're guys like, hey, I said this about Robin. She was taken from us in Coleraine Township, Ohio. She was an officer, captain on an engine.
Fell through the floor.
The basement. I was there about 3 weeks before that, teaching Pride and Ocean for them. And I remember because she bought a book and took pictures of her guys. When she walked in, her chief was talking. I said, well, she's one of your company officers, isn't she? He goes, how'd you know she's not in uniform? I go, because as soon as she walked in, these guys are like, over here. They had a chair propped up. The other one's already making her coffee for her. Because good bosses have people, they want to sit with you. Ryan, where are you sitting at? They want to hang with you. They want to be there. You see these little cliques, good cliques. And every now and then you see Chuchi off in the corner that's over there looking at his watch like we're taking up his time. And you go, well, there's the guy that's more interested in his boating magazine, his golf clubs, and his guy. It's you can spot them. They want to hang. So the followership you mentioned, it's huge. And it's not what some people think it is. It's like, you know, you and I do it. We just the anniversary of losing Chief Alan Brunasini, one of my mentors, I call my godfather. You know, I mentioned Tom Brennan before we got on. It still hasn't. This is probably the first time I've said it. It still hasn't hit me that, you know, I received the Tom Brennan Lifetime Achievement Award. I can't even put that together yet, and it's going on 2 years now. But you look at Tom Brennan, you look at all the people that have affected us in our careers and what they meant to us. I was one of their followers. I mean, if Tom Brennan was sitting up on a stage and took his shoes off and said, okay, Ryan and Rick and the rest of you, all right, let's start over. This is how you lace a shoe.
Right.
And this is how you start off. Before you get tie a bow, I'd be like taking notes going, can you go back over that bow tying thing again? Right? I mean, but you know, you and I are into this job. We're ate up with it. It's like we don't get giddy. You can have Brad Pitt sit to stand next to us. Like, how you doing? That's good. Thanks for it. You know, you stand next to Donnie Hayden, we talked about, who just retired from New York City, the legends. You stand next to him and Chief Joy DiBernardi, and you stand next to Bill Gustin, and you go, because me and John Salka have said, God, I would love to be a firefighter for Bill Gustin. I mean, you're like, you get caught up, and you're like, you're right. You just want to hang with those people. And I've said this for years. I was blessed because the people I admired and hung with as a young firefighter loved the job so much you couldn't help but admire them. They loved the job. They didn't bitch and complain and you know, the greatest place in the world, aside from being with your family, all right, is the first family is at the firehouse.
Right.
And why you would make that time difficult, bad, moody, or whatever, I said this for years. Subway's hiring. Go make sandwiches at Subway. We don't need you at the firehouse. The firehouse, the place, right? You remember, you grab your shit. Sometimes you forget it. You go run in the firehouse. Oh, I left this in my car. And you got a good thing going when you're always late coming home.
Right.
You get off at 7. Well, as you get ready, the guys are coming, hey, what's going on? You end up talking at the kitchen table. Then you end up in the locker room, grab your stuff, and you're talking in the locker room. Then you go, and you're on the floor, you're talking on the floor. Then you're back in there. Now you go back in the kitchen. You sit, and about 8:30, your spouse is going, are you coming home? Oh, yeah, I was out the door like 9 times, but that's a cool thing. When you run out the door, and no disrespect, but there are factory workers out there. Oh my God, we're talking about people that are working their asses off for all of us. But a lot of those jobs out there, they don't go, hey, Ryan, when's the last time you stopped at a factory, had a cup of coffee?
Right.
Oh, I can't wait to go back there for a bit. They get done. They have the little retirement clickers and counters on their computers or at home, and it's not us. So again, that officer, that senior firefighter setting that tempo, it's the coolest job in the world. Why would you not enjoy it, right?
Well, it's something that you and I spoke about before the podcast, and people who will listen to the Behind the Shield podcast that we record down in Orlando. That's something that when I very first started, I wasn't very proud of, but I'm pretty proud of now. I was having a lot of anger issues, so I actually started going to counseling. And when I showed up like a bullfrog, I'm like, this guy's going to be an idiot. I'm going to look like a big wimp and blah, 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 blah. Now it's like, oh, my God, I missed counseling last week. Man, I need to go to this guy. He's helped my marriage. He's helped my career. He's helped everything. And one of the things that I got lost in, Chief, and maybe you can understand this, I'm getting towards the end of my career. I am. I've got 8 years left till I can retire. And I'd already made up my mind that January 22nd, 2027, Ryan was going to leave Charleston Fire Department because I've got so many more mountains I want to climb. And my counselor asked me, said, Ryan, why are you focused on January 22nd, 2027 so much when you should be enjoying tomorrow? He's like, what did you always want to be? Well, I always want to be a fireman. Aren't you a fireman? Oh, you know what? You're right. Because I still do love going to work. And why would I be putting a termination date? Because, I might get there and I might be assigned to Engine 2 as the captain. And I might go for another 13 freaking years. So I think it's what, especially my generation, is we need to enjoy the journey. Enjoy being that firefighter. Man, we worked our butts off to get to where we're at. We need to just enjoy the time while we're here.
Well, and there's guys and gals, Ryan, that dream of being firefighters. There's some right now. If you're listening to this, folks, if you're looking for a firefighting job, come to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. There are hundreds and hundreds of firefighter jobs and not enough applicants. I'm
really
here. I know where I was interim chief. I'm telling you, it's Louisville's putting another truck in service. That's 18 people. They always run 5, never less than 5 other truck companies. They're like, because they always hire firefighter paramedic. If you're a firefighter paramedic, just pick your fire department. Pick the department you work for and just go there because they're going to hire you. If you're a certified, I'm telling you, there's so many. Well, there's other states, Ryan, that are not like that. You have a better chance of winning the lottery. And I ask guys in class, I said, I'll ask you. So pretend I'm talking with Ryan's this 1-year firefighter. Okay, let's go back in time. And you're in class. I said, so tell me about Charleston. They get hired in Charleston. You guys stand on street corners, right? And you hand out applications every year, like fill the boot. And you go, no. So what do I have to like fill out application? And you go, yeah. Do I have to fill out the whole thing? Well, yeah. I don't have to. I can't leave stuff blank. Well, no, you have to fill it all out. Okay. So do I have to like take a written exam? And most places, yeah, take a written exam. Do I have to pass that too?
Right.
Holy crap, you guys are tough. Do I have to do physical ability? You make me do a physical ability too? Okay. You're not going to do a background, are you? You're going to make me do a background? Is there going to be like a drug test? Is there going to be a psych test? Is there going to be a polygraph? You're going to do an interview too? And you're going to call, and right, and the physical exam and all. So you think about this. I got to fill out the application. I got to pass the written. I got to pass the physical. I got to pass my physical exam. I got to pass my drug test. I got to pick my psych test, my polygraph test. You're going to do a background. There's big background. After the background, and then you're going to do an interview. And I'm going to go on list and hope that Charleston is hiring a few guys before this list expires. Some guys are on a list, Ryan, for 2 years, and they don't hire anybody.
Nope.
Why in God's name would you get to that point, go through all that work, and not enjoy it? I've got an article that's already submitted, because like you do, we have to put
Right.
them in ahead of time. And in the title of the article is, you work so hard to get here and you blew it. And I talk about two different things. One is, you work so hard to get here and you went out and you did something stupid and now we're going to fire your ass. On the other hand, you got here and I'm like, little kids look up to you. Thank God they're saving Toys R Us. Okay,
Right.
that's big. Back. You go to Toys R Us. We talked about this last time. There's a whole aisle. There's a whole aisle full of toys. A whole aisle full of toys dedicated to you. No disrespect, folks, but there's not a whole aisle full of UPS trucks.
No.
Hey, Ryan, let's go. Look, you and I go play UPS driver. No, little kids want to play firefighter. They want to play astronauts, police officers, firefighters, and teachers. There you go. Why would you get there and not be happy? And on your worst day, it's still the best job in the world. And it's not a shameless plug, but go to fire engineering and Google or do a search and look for my article, Firehouse Survival. I actually did an article on which came to 3 P's of surviving. I don't know if we talked about this last show or not. The 3 P's of surviving in the firehouse. I don't know if we talked about that. If we did, if we have a minute, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, right?
Right.
All right. These are a result of all the emails you and I and all our friends get about, I work for a bad chief. I work for a bad officer. I have bad firefighters. I have a bad chief. You're the company officer. What's that song? Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right, stuck in the middle with you. All that. And I came up with a program and an article that Bobby had published for me called Firehouse Survival. It's called Dealing with Him. The class I do is Us versus Them, but the editors wouldn't let me say Us versus Them. But I came up, short version is the 3 P's. The 3 P's to surviving in the firehouse. And this works for any walk of life, but let's just talk the firehouse. The most important one, the foundation for all of it is passion. The first P is passion. You don't ever give up your love for the job. The only one thing in life you have absolute control over is your attitude. Anger, happiness, and sadness, all the emotions that come and go out of your day, your week, your month, but you choose your attitude. Don't ever give up. I let someone do it. I let a mutt of a chief reach into my heart and steal my passion for this incredible. I'll never let that happen again.
Never.
I'll never, ever let that happen again. Passion, folks, is everything. Obviously, like I said, I'm giving you the very, very, very short snippet here of the article in the class. Read the article. Number 2, second P, perseverance. Don't ever give up the fight. Just don't become insubordinate. Don't compromise your values, your principles. Don't become one of them. Don't say, screw it. I'm just going to be like, everything in life is temporary. Give it time. It takes a while, and never give up, that way that you look at the job and how you do it, so on and so forth. And then the last P is probably the most difficult one. It's patience.
Oh.
Sometimes you got to wait 10 freaking years for them to leave, retire, win the lottery, die, whatever. and a lot of people say, but they'll say, Ryan, they go, well, that's great, but how do I keep my sanity? And I'm like, well, I'm not a doctor, but I can't tell you this. If you want to hang with miserable people, misery loves what?
Company. Absolutely.
Company. You know what? Find people who love the job like you do. You may even have to go outside your 8-station, 9-station, 1-station department to find a buddy. Hang with people who love it like you and I. Hang with people who love the job like we do, and you'll find yourself a lot happier when it comes to that stuff. Because it's easy to get drugged down. It's easy to have the Eeyores in the fire service suck you down into, they're the energy suckers. And and I'll tell people one more point: the young guys are looking to you. The young guys and gals are going. They're dying. They're looking to you. They're doing what they're being allowed to do by the company officer, senior firefighters. If you have one with a shitty attitude, I'm sorry. If you have one with you can cut that later.
No, we're leaving it in.
If you have someone with a bad attitude, what are you doing as a company officer, as a senior firefighter, to change that?
Right.
I'm blaming the generations and start mentoring and leading again like we used to, like when you and I started a long time ago.
Well, it's so funny that you're bringing this up because we have a live submission to our recorded podcast. I did put this out on social media that I had you on, and it says, "Hey, Ryan, looking forward to hearing the podcast." What's that?
Wait a minute, I didn't get that.
Yeah, right. Also, I'm looking forward to hearing your second podcast with the chief. He said, by the way, not everybody in Illinois lives in cornfields. If you're ever in Chicago, northwest of the suburbs, let me know. I'm not going to tell you who this is or where he works for. He says, but Ryan, Can you ask the chief how to deal with a poor
Ryan, back up for a second because I lost you.
All right.
They said not everybody in Illinois
lives in cornfields, because I published the cornfield out in Amboy. He says, can you ask the chief how to deal with a poor culture? I've been trying to inspire our new hires, buying the rookies pride and ownership, and it seems like the leadership does not care. He says, blah, blah, blah. No one. He says one of the responses from the higher-ups was, no one cares. The guys here are just here for paychecks. So the issue I'm having is, how do you change a culture when the leadership doesn't care? Ooh.
You know, and that question comes up a lot, and first of all, it has to do with, and I understand, and God bless the listener, that I hear the word culture so much, I vomit in my mouth when I hear it, because it's like it's an excuse for a lot of people, not in this individual's case. But I think the quick answer is by knocking one peg over at a time. In the fire service, we're so hell-bent, we're so good. One of our greatest attributes is the fact that we're problem solvers.
Right.
But we're so busy trying to fix our nation's fire service, we fix nothing. The whole state's fire service, the whole county, the whole department. You know what? You need to concentrate, and they're not. This is where people understand team building. Successful teams are built by successful individuals, and you have to kind of roll back and go, okay. And all my players, all my teammates are different. They bring different things to the table. They have varied backgrounds, educations, upbringings, thoughts. They have different priorities, different values. You know what? I worked for a god-awful, horrible fire chief that would walk out of his office and he made this face like, he'd go, if this was the private sector, I'd fire half these people.
Wow.
When you have upper echelon that say they don't get it, they're only here for a paycheck, is that true in some cases? Yes. Are there people like that? Yeah. What you do as a boss, as a senior firefighter, as a company officer, is you go after each individual and you try to pay. First of all, you have to listen. You pay attention, find out where their desires are. And then you start leading by example. And if you have 4 people that work for you in your company, your firehouse, you know, are you going to get all 4 of them all the time guaranteed? No, you might be lucky. You might have that crew, that dream crew. However, it doesn't last long because people move and get promoted and so on and so forth, move shifts. The point is, if number one, if you want to change them, lead by example, love the job. If you're any kind of, is this person, did they give it up? Are they a company officer, or are they just saying they're firefighters? Okay. If you're a senior firefighter company officer, the worst thing you could do is bitch and complain in front of your people. My lieutenant, Bill Allen, we talked about last time, Bill Allen would come in, you know, 10 guys on duty, 15 guys there sometimes. When I was going through my divorce to my practice wife, I'd come in I married my best friend this time, but I would come in and go, see this face? This is me. This is me. The next, and I'm like, I'd be all pissed off and angry. And about an hour and a half later, we're finishing rig checks and stuff, you know, the more detailed part of it. And we're all laughing and yucking up. I look at him and go, you did it again. Because the company officer sets the tempo for the shift or for your on-call group. They're the ones that determine the makeup of the attitude. If you're going to sit in your office and hide, if you're going to let your you run this shift, you run your volunteer career. If you're wearing a trumpet and to up here, you're it. Lead by example. Lead with the right example or with the right attitude. Now, again, don't ever pick up the phone and you call Ryan. I need a vent.
Right.
So
let it roll.
You go. And you walk out, hey guys, what's good? You don't ever, first of all, they're counting on you. They need you.
Right.
They need you to be that. Some of these guys and gals have never had a real boss in life. They worked for McDonald's or just come out of college. So be the leader, be the boss that they want to work for. That great boss, great leader. Then it's like, okay, I've got them that are just here for a paycheck. Well, I used to love pay tribute to, God bless him, rest his soul, Chief Brunacini. One of his greatest comments out of all the great comments he had was, as a captain, he would go, okay, guys, he'd go like this. Okay, guys, everybody who wants to train, meet me at engine 1. Everybody who doesn't want to train, meet me at engine 1. There you go. You're the boss. You set the tempo. If they're there just for a paycheck, then you know what? You better have your routine together. You better and what happens is, it's a bigger thing than just they're there just for a paycheck. We don't explain to them what it is their first day. That's right. The first thing to do. So they end up being those kind of people. Again, there are some that you're never going to change, but those are few and far between. We don't lead with the right attitude. Eddie Buchanan's class, leading with attitude. We don't lead with the right attitude. We don't set the tempo. We don't educate. We don't mentor. We don't train. And you know what? This is the fire service. Not everybody's cut out to be a firefighter. If you had a couple people that, you know what? Fine. But as a lieutenant, as a captain, as a senior firefighter, if your bosses don't give a shit about what goes on, who cares?
I don't.
You have that. Yeah, you have that opportunity. So my advice to a lot of people, not just to this particular viewer, is stop blaming the culture. Stop blaming the generation. Every generation, we talked about this last time, every single generation has had its challenges. My old man's in his late 80s, a sergeant in the Marines of Korea. And I remember asking him, so what was it like recruiting people? I think we talked about this last time. What was it like recruiting people in the 60s? And I didn't even get the 60s out of my mouth. He said, "Me them damn hippies with their rock and roll music." So how dare somebody think their generation, how arrogant do you have to be to think your generation is better than there's ain't nothing wrong with millennials. When you get people, they come in with these they come in with expectations just like you did.
Right.
Well, they come in with this, you want entitlement, go work for Subway or Walmart. Go there and be done. This is the fire service. This is our fire service. Since when did other people run it for us? If they want to come and just get a paycheck, that's fine. We're still going to do our roll call. We're still going to get together. You're either going to stay positive and be into the job, or I'll find a different shift for you. I'll do something else. Or you'll be waxed and stuff. Again, we've gotten to a point where I actually blame the guys with 27 to 31 years in the job because they no longer mentor and train and set the tempo. These are new young firefighters coming in that don't care about the job. Well, okay, what are you doing? Before you throw your hands up and all that stuff, what do you do? Again, I've had guys. There's guys right now in my head that I can remember that were just there for a paycheck. But then I looked at who the bosses were. I went, oh, it kind of makes sense now. And everybody has different stages in their lives and their careers, Ryan, that they go through that kind of dictate what their attitudes are going to be at the time. And there are other people that weren't like you and I. They weren't ate up with the fire service. They couldn't wait to be a firefighter. Other people go, you know what? I heard they have 1 day on and 2 days off or whatever the schedule is. They only work 10 days a month, 10 days.
Right.
That means they can mow lawns or play golf or do this kind of shit, fishing. Yeah, but the moment you get in there, when you're around good people, good senior men and women, good senior firefighters, good officers, if you can't fall in love with the job there, then there's something really wrong with you. I'm sorry. When it comes back to the culture of just there for a paycheck, maybe this particular, God bless him, I'm glad, it's a great question. Maybe that this particular viewer, listener, is just stuck with that crew. It happens. Take it as a challenge. Take it as if you're it sounds like you're a leader, whether you're everybody's a leader, but more so of a company officer, senior firefighter. Take it as a challenge. You know what? Like I said, screw you. Do the best advice I ever had in my life. I mention all the time. All right. Worry about the things you can fix, not the things you can't. You can't fix admin. I can't change how they view. You know what I can do? I can worry about myself first, make sure I'm all dialed in, that I'm all perfect and good. And that, and then I can start worrying about the guys and gals around me. And I think that's huge right there. If you want to start making a difference, lead by example, the proper and right example. Make sure you're engaged, that your people are engaged, and either they're going to fall either onto your side of the yard or they're going to fall the other way. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to fall. Ryan, think about this. You've been doing this a long time. I ask guys this, and I think about myself, okay? How many out of all the firefighters you've ever really met, there's probably only 1 or 2 that were just god-awful, horrible, but you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
Even some of the ones that are struggling that some people call much are not really much. They're just having something going on. But you know what I'm saying? I can only think of like 2 guys that were throwaways in my whole career.
Right.
So that being said, there's a message for you. If you got a crew, if you have firefighters that are into the job just there for a paycheck, you know what? Can you change everything about them? No. You worry about the things you can fix, not the things you can't. That means yourself first. How dialed in are you? And then how much of a leader, how much of a person of their future are you being to get them dialed in and get them into the job? And then after that, if they don't get it, so be it, because this goes back to the 3 Ps. Now it goes back to that. So you're allowing these young guys that don't care about the job or they're just for a paycheck, get you to a point where you're frustrated. Okay, have your little, I'll just say it, every little pity party, That's what I say to myself. Don't take offense to myself. Have my little pity party and get over it, because some people you're just not going to change.
Well,
And some people might take longer, So I get, and I know what he's saying. And no, Illinois is not all cornfields. Okay. Though, we talked about Amboy. They're pretty freaking incredible out there. But
yeah, they really were. I was really quite impressed. Chief, I'm gonna add to the awesome advice you gave, and this is something that I went searching for. I was in a bad situation. I was in a bad house that wasn't running fires, that had some bad leadership to it. And I always tell everybody that the Charleston Fire Department has a red book of rules that's not been updated since the early 40s. And in that red book of rules, it says I can punch one person in the face one time in my career and not get fired. I laid that red book on the counter. I said, I'm going to use my one punch on you, but I'm not going to do it right now. But I'll tell you when it's coming, because your freaking attitude has made me sick. It's made my marriage sick. I can't stand coming here. You're freaking toxic. And what I found in searching for all that is the person that was toxic was Ryan. I let him steal my passion. I let him steal my joy. So my suggestion to that person is to become infectious, to the point you're almost obnoxiously infectious. Well, the chief don't care. Well, you know why? That chief's probably got a lot of stuff on his hand. He's probably got something going on at home, or his kid's going away to college. He's pretty upset about it. I'm going to empathize with that chief, but you know what? That has zero effect on us. Go grab your nozzle. Let's go. Go, 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 go. And you're not going to be that person every day. You're going to be peaks and valleys. I'm telling you, my social experiment going into my new house is they were like, that's a horrible house to go to. It's a horrible leader. It's a horrible situation. No, it wasn't. It was people's opinion from the outside. Because once I got there, my captain and I, we go together like freaking peas and carrots. It's a phenomenal relationship. But I did stir the pot a little bit, because I'm staying positively aggressive. I'm staying up on the apparatus floor, and we're making that change. Anyone can make a change. You don't have to have bugles. You can be the day one probationary. I think it's our responsibility to pick up the rock and carry it, not just kick it down the road.
Oh, exactly. And you saying that reminded me, there's a great book out there, folks. You can get it. It's called It's Your Ship by Abershoff.
Oh, great book. Great book.
Bedfold was a corpsman that received the Medal of Honor, but it was like the worst ship of the Navy.
Yep.
He put it to the best ship of the Navy. And this is all about leadership. It's all about, you can't, and I'll say it, Bruno used to say it, Chief Rick, you can't shit up. There's a technical phrase for you. Write that down, because shit is not a curse word, by the way. It's an acronym for stack high in transit. That's on the internet, which means it's true. But that being said, you can't shit up. It all starts with who's running the show. And you said something. There was something I want to keep. When you said, about being infectious, that was Bill Allen. Bill Allen had all kinds of personalities working for him, but he had a way of he knew his people well enough. He knew what buttons to push to suck you into his positive,
that's right,
positive circle of influence. And it's a Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People kind of thing. But that being said, he had that ability. And you've been there. You walk into the firehouses, you could tell. I've said this before. I talked about Benny Crane. Give me 10 minutes your firehouse, I'll tell you the boss is today.
Right.
Just by how the fire, I can tell you right now who the boss is within 10 minutes, just by looking at your firehouse. I don't even have to talk to any guys. Just by looking at the firehouse, I can tell you. Then you start listening to guys, you go, God, I can already tell you. Either I have some lieutenant or captain in the office going, are they still out there?
Right.
Those guys are mean, or hide in their office, or I've got to, and then for someone to blame their people, for these guys that go, my guys suck. Really? And you said something perfect before about it was Ryan.
It was me.
Let me share this one with you. At a large department in a particular state, I won't say where, great class, great people. But about 6 months later, this guy writes me an email. He says, I know, Chief, you get a lot of people come up to you and all this stuff, but the reason, you understand, 6 months ago you were here, blah, blah, blah. And about halfway through the class that you and Chief Salka were doing, I got a little pissed off. And about an hour after that, I realized the reason I got pissed off is because you were talking about me.
That's exactly right.
I had become the problem of the firehouse. He goes, you got to understand, I'm a lieutenant. I got 25 years here, and I'm the union president. And I realized I was the problem. And he goes, and the reason I'm writing to you today, anyway, I left class. I was really upset myself. I went back, got my guys on the kitchen table. I apologized. I said, look, I'm going to get back to as close as I was when I first walked in the door. I know I'll never be quite there, but I'm going to try. He goes, here we are 6 months later. And the reason I'm right there, we had a pretty good fire earlier today, pretty good job. And after supper, one of my guys' wives came back with the kids. They brought dessert. We're having coffee. And she leans over and taps me on the arm. And she says, I'm so glad you changed.
Oh, wow.
I said, excuse me? She goes, I'm so glad you changed. And he said, I understand. She goes, well, for the longest time, I couldn't understand why my husband was so excited to go to that firehouse. I mean, the night before, you could see the energy building. And that morning, it was like almost to the point I was jealous. He loved that firehouse more than me. I mean, he did, but you know what I'm saying? I just,
right.
Like, how was he was so excited to get to that firehouse. And pretty much every day when he came home, he was pissed off and angry. And I finally realized it was because of you. It was because of you. And she goes, and she tapped me again. He goes, I'm so glad you changed. And he goes, at first I was like, had the wind knocked out of me. And then I went, it's working. What I said I was going to start doing 6 months ago, let me explain. When I would come in the morning, I had grievances. I'd come in with these grievances. Those of us that do labor negotiations talk about, we call them greeting cards.
Right.
He come in and goes, I got so many of these greeting cards for that son of a bitch in there. And he goes, I keep walking. The guys go, go get him, LT. Go kick his ass, man. Go kick his ass. He goes, and I'd walk through. He goes, you know when I left the kitchen, you know what my brothers and sisters, you know what they were saying about me when I left? Jesus, are you kidding me? Another day of this? Can we just come here one day without the bitching and complaining and the negative? He goes, I realized at that moment I was the one bringing him down. My fight, he goes, if you ever had that feeling where you realize you're wrong and you get nauseous, all of a sudden you go, it's me. And when you said it's me, I'm like, I've been there. We've all been there. It's like,
absolutely.
Oh my God, I'm the one that, I want to go back to real quick before we run out of time. And I made a note of this before. When you talk about going to counseling, okay, and I know you're a big advocate of it, and we're both very fortunate to have a very great friend in Chief Bobby Halton, and I'm honored that I work for a company, Fire Engineering at FDIC, with a boss like Bobby, who is so proactive about mental health awareness, that it's okay to ask for help, that it's okay to go to counseling, that it's not a weakness. There's like you said, there's nothing wrong with you. That first of all, it's not normal to see what a firefighter sees.
Right.
Secondly, that it's okay. We talked before going on the air about a good friend of ours that's one of the bravest people I know. And he, after 9/11, he's like, young guys are coming up to me going, well, if it's okay for him to go to counseling,
that's right.
It must okay for me. There's nothing wrong with having someone to sit down and talk to. 90% of the stuff that goes on is suicide's horrible and tragic, but the majority of them have nothing to do with the fire service. We want to blame the fire service, but they really don't.
Right.
If you do the back matter for a lot of these, you find out there was infidelity in the marriage, there was financial problems, there was things, and so forth. Every now and then, some of you throw a bad baby call or something like that. But bottom line is, there's nothing wrong with going and seeking someone to just talk to or whatever. It doesn't even have to take a bad call, folks.
Nope.
There's things going on in your life, and again, I think we talked about this before. Everybody, I'm not a doctor. I'm not even close to ever being one. I watched them on television. That's about it. I've been to one, but that's about it. But everybody has a kind of a container inside their body, a shit bucket.
Yep.
And throughout their life, there's everything from, and back in school when they were kids, there was peer pressure, then there was dating pressure, and then there was grades pressure, school, academic, and then there was later on, there was maybe a new marriage, and there was there might be marital kind of problems, there might be financial problems, there might have been work problems, kid problems, whatever. And throughout your life, that stuff gets kind of dumped in there. And then as a firefighter, you throw in a dead baby call, throw in a bad accident, a tragedy, something like that. And not everybody, but some of our folks out there, I've been there, where your shit bucket overflows.
Oh, absolutely.
What determines the outcome is sometimes who you have around you in your inner circle or in your holding the safety net. I don't think we're failing people. If we're failing anybody, it's because we don't pay attention to each other. We do this. These should not be at the kitchen table at the firehouse. Look, we both have them. They're both important smartphones.
Right.
There, put it down. Pay attention to each other. Watch each other. We always always know when someone else's kids are traveling on the wrong path in life, but we miss it with our own people because we're so busy with our thumbs and not paying attention. If you're at the kitchen table or on drill night, pay attention to your people. We don't do that anymore. Look out, watch for them. Notice the changes ahead of time. That young firefighter always came in. They were there for drill night, their volley place, like an hour and a half early. Hour and a half early for their shift at the career place. Uniform, Chris. They were checking. What's up, boss? What's up? What's up, Kim? What do you want? And then 3 years later, they're coming in. Their uniform is messed up. They're late. They're calling in sick. They're not shaving or whatever. Their hair. And you just noticed it now.
Right.
You notice that there were signs. We notice about someone else's kids that they're going on the wrong trail, on the wrong path in life, but we don't. If you're a mentor, if you're a senior firefighter, come to us. You pay attention to your people. But folks, I'm telling you, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong.
One of the best decisions I've ever made in my whole life was, and let me tell you what, Chief, it was not easy. I mean, the second session I walked in, he was like, Ryan, I'm going to tell you, the second session that we do is going to hurt. I'm going to tell you straight up front. I mean, I was crying full of tears. I mean, one of my biggest kicks in the gut was we were talking about interacting with my wife and interacting with some of the firefighters and talking about offering opinions. He's like, do you ever think that someone don't want your opinion? Oh, man. Oh. And it was just like, so fast forward 7 weeks later, he told me last session, he's like, Ryan, we're almost done here. And I'm like, no, we're not. No. I'm still broken. He's like, no, Ryan. He's like, your progress has just been phenomenal. And I'm like, I told him, I was like, I was so reluctant to come in here. I mean, I came in here kicking and screaming, headed towards divorce, headed towards this, that, and the other. And I'm telling you what, son, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Huge shout out to our good friend Andy Starnes for pushing me over the edge to make that decision. And I feel like I'm ready to tackle my last bit of the fire service, understanding more, empathetic more, and just giving a damn more.
Oh, and once you realize once you learn about yourself, right? I mean, one of my favorite sayings is egos eat brains.
Oh, right.
God, all you gotta do is go to social media, and there's a couple chiefs out there. I told my wife, I'm like, when every other day you're posting pictures of you, or you're posting pictures of another award you got, and it's like, I'm so honored and grateful to be presented with this. So how about this one? I'm so humbled,
right,
to have been presented with this award for the leadership and talent. You just said you're humbled, but you're on social media with a picture of your little statue bragging to everybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, some people, it's like, oh my God, their egos are so out of whack. It's all about them. It's all about, I think people need to make fun of themselves every day. There are some people take themselves way too seriously.
Right.
That's a shame. And to be honest, people don't really dig you, man. You may think they do, and they're going to be nice to your face. Oh, you're the greatest thing. I'm telling you right now, behind the scenes, they're all going, oh God, what an ego freaking maniac. And,
right.
and you see the social media with some people stage pictures of themselves, and then you got I said there's one. I'm a big one on the uniform and etiquette.
Right.
Unless you're part of an honor guard group or a funeral chiefs committee, you really should be wearing your Class A hat inside when you're walking around. Anyway, especially when you're doing presentations. If you're FDNY or Chicago, you walk in the fire street hat, I understand that. But some of these guys, they're just so into look at me. And we talked about the wall. You look at your wall.
Right.
Right. You're behind me. There's the only cover shot I've ever had in Fire Engineering magazines. I put a picture of it. There's a whole story behind that.
Right.
I took the picture with the fire tornado behind me, and there's a reason why he's there. But everything else, there's our flag. I'm a flag nut. All right. Believe what our flag represents. The gong. I mean, it's all just, you don't have, that's not a diploma. That's
all Paul Combs. He sent that to me.
For the manager, the Mayday article that's behind me, we got the journalism award for it. Other than that, it should always be about good bosses, good leaders, right? Are always thinking about their people first. It's always about your people. But when you put on social media or LinkedIn, oh my God, what every other day there's a post of another award you got for being a great leader or being a great person, and yet you start off by saying so humbled and so honored. Wait a minute. I mean, then why do you even have to put it on social media? Don't people,
right.
Anyway, that in itself tells you about those people. It should always be about your people first,
Chief, you know that I could talk to you for days. I mean, not just minutes or hours. I mean,
we could both talk underwater.
It's so funny that when I run into you, it's like, oh, here we go. Yeah, here we go. I'm like, get out my book. I mean, I took 2 pages of notes in the 90 minutes we've been going. And it's so funny that you brought up a flag that I don't know where to put this at. So this is our training captain was deployed to Kuwait, and I'm gonna get a little choked up on this one. This flag flew over his base in Kuwait, the largest forward operating base for the U.S. Army, on my birthday. So they sent me this big old thing. It says, Ryan, this flag was flown over camp, whatever it was. It's just like I get tore up that I want to put this up there, but I tell you, it's so funny that your flag is there, but I was not expecting this.
I've got one just like that. You can't see it. It's on the other side of this camera in the display case. Yeah.
So I definitely want to do that. But Chief, man, thank you so much for coming on again. You've got an absolute invitation to this table anytime you want to. I think we've given some great takeaways in the podcast, which I usually try to catch a blurb from the podcast and put out as the name for it. So I don't know if iTunes will let me, but Can't Shit Up might be the name of this podcast. But thank you for coming on. Tell the listeners out there where they can find you in the social media sphere and where they can find you.
Well, you can find me. All you got to do is just zip my name out there. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and all that different stuff. Pride and Ownership. Pride, all spelled out. prideandownership.com has all my contact info, has my cell phone number, all that different stuff on there. So hit me up on any of that stuff. I love the theme, like we've been talking about making a difference, and, understanding what it is in the fire service. And I love being able to send that message. So appreciate that. But I appreciate the time. It's always an honor to meet with you. And I'm glad we got to do this a second time, pal. I really do.
Man, I tell you, it's such an honor having you in my Rolodex. We definitely got to get your partner in crime on here, which he is always such a hoot to get a hold to.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy.
All right, everyone. You've been listening to Jumpseat Radio, the podcast that gives you some tangible takeaways to make a difference inside the walls of your firehouse. You've been listening to Jumpseat Radio podcast. Make sure to follow along on Twitter at Jumpseat Views, Facebook.com/Views from the Jumpseat, Instagram at Jumpseat Views. And remember, the next time that you show up to the firehouse, that you are Jumpseat ready. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week.